So there was a headline recently about IHOP and Applebee's planning to open a dual restaurant in 2025, in an attempt to capture all crowds for every meal of the day. Suppose you want IHOP for breakfast and brunch, or Applebee's for lunch and dinner. You can go to the same place, and it sounds weird at first, but it makes a lot of sense. But this reminds me of a similar dual restaurant. Growing up, I lived in a small town, and when our family wanted to go to our nearest Taco Bell, we would travel a mere 20 minutes to the nearest one. Except this Taco Bell was different. It was a KFC/Taco Bell hybrid, and that concept blew my mind as a kid. Two big fast food restaurants are able to coexist in one building? How is that possible? And as I grew older and more jaded, how is this legal? However, a simple Google search will tell you that these two fast food establishments are owned by the same company. At first, I was educated on how they were able to exist together. But what do you mean these are owned by the same company? And they can also be combined with a Pizza Hut? So these huge companies, who seem to usually operate separately unless you've been to these collaboration locations, are owned by a mega company? These mega companies are called parent companies. Parent companies are companies that specifically have a large control over a company or many companies. They are in charge of major decisions with their own companies, and they usually gain these by either buying them out, merging with them,
or some other third thing.
So when there's a small town and it doesn't make financial sense to open a Taco Bell location and a separate KFC location, their parent company, in this case the parent company for Taco Bell, KFC, and Pizza Hut is Yum Brands. Yum Brands decided to open a dual location where they can get customers of both franchises but only have to deal with the financial risk of one building in an area that couldn't financially support two separate ones. This is cool for those who are picky and are in a group that some want Taco Bell and some are craving KFC. And I don't usually see a problem with this. They are properly staffed and are able to offer the same quality as their singular restaurant counterparts. But with the IHOP and Applebee's dual restaurant announcement, I was surprised that 1, this is a thing that can happen, but more importantly, they are owned by the same parent company, Dine Brands? And it caused me to wonder, how many companies are owned by the same parent company? So how many parent companies are there? It becomes a little more of a complicated question because as I started to research this, I didn't even realize the can of worms I was about to open. Because Yum Brands, which owns Taco Bell, KFC, and Pizza Hut, isn't the top company. Yum Brands were also owned by a bigger parent company. You may have heard of them. They were owned by PepsiCo. PepsiCo had a restaurant division, but they had a spin-off that became Yum Brands. So they don't currently own Yum Brands. Their past ownership is still felt. This is why in these restaurants you only have Pepsi options to choose when you get a drink. But PepsiCo owns way more than just the drinks associated with it. PepsiCo has either full ownership or a major partnership with Aquafina, Mountain Dew, Brisk, Crush, Gatorade, Mug Root Beer, Naked, Muscle Milk, Ocean Spray, Schweppes, Pure Leaf, SodaStream, Starbucks, Starry, Tropicana, Doritos, Cheetos, Captain Crunch, Cracker Jacks, Jack Links, Popcorners, Sun Chips, Quaker Oats, Lay's, Ruffles, Rice-A-Roni, and Fritos. This list isn't completely exhaustive of every nitty-gritty detail. For example, they own the Mountain Dew energy drink brand, but you get the point. This company owns or is responsible for a lot of the major foods and drinks we consume daily. But what gets weird is when a parent company owns different types of businesses. Nestle, for example, is a company that owns Crunch Bars, Butterfingers, Smarties, and Nesquik. They also own Gerber and Ralph Lauren. Nestle, who also owns the Wonka Company, is responsible for Laffy Taffy Nerds and Sweet Tarts, but they also own the cat and dog food brands Purina, Fancy Feast, and Dog Chow. It gets so weird because if you love Ben & Jerry's ice cream, but also want some Breeze to wash your dishes, and some Dove soap to clean you up, and some Axe body spray to keep you smelling great, what is good for you is that they are owned by the same parent company, Unilever. So the way these parent companies form is usually from acquisitions and mergers, and there's no better example than Disney. And we all know that Disney owns a lot of studios and networks. Famous examples are 20th Century Fox, Marvel Studios, ABC, ESPN, National Geographic, the History Channel, and Pixar. Pixar is the most head-scratching one because it was not started as a Disney company. Pixar was established in 1986 after being bought by Steve Jobs, and they worked with Disney to create shorts and ended up making the first full-length 3D animated films. Pixar collaborated with Disney to help market and distribute films, but after having such a long partnership with Disney, they purchased Pixar in 2006, but decided to keep the studios physically separated. So Pixar is owned by Disney, just like Marvel and Lucasfilms, but they are their own company. And we don't usually look at Taco Bell as a Yum brand food, because yes, the parent company owns, controls big business decisions, and influences their company, But what makes these companies valuable to acquire in the first place is their brand, style, and trust from consumers. I remember everyone being scared when Disney bought the rights to Star Wars through the Lucasfilms acquisition. I remember being so pissed that they were going to be made into a musical or something. And despite how you feel about modern Star Wars films, they are largely untouched by Disney for the most part. Maybe the quirks, characters, and stories were altered a little, but it wasn't a fully Disney-fied Star Wars film. So it's not an awful thing when these companies do get acquired, but it can be very terrible. Take Microsoft's semi-recent mega acquisition of Activision Blizzard and King with smaller studios under them. They acquired these studios not to make them Xbox exclusive games because they didn't want to miss out on the market of competing consoles, but when you spend $69 billion on acquiring studios, they either need to all be making your money back quickly or there will be issues. And that's the problem with these big acquisitions, because they will never shut down Activision or Blizzard. Their games are making way too much money to pass up. But what about the smaller studios that are getting their start and don't have the safety net of a Call of Duty or Overwatch to secure a financial reason to stay? Well, the FTC did tell Microsoft that they wouldn't be allowed to immediately shut down and lay off these small studios. So good, they have protection. Didn't stop Microsoft from doing it anyway. But luckily, we have laws in place to stop these mega companies from owning everything, right? Right? Well, we have antitrust laws with the ability to break up monopolies so we can have fair competition and stop these companies from owning the entire industry and just raising the prices. The issue is that a lot of these big companies, Disney included, are not legal monopolies because Disney owns a lot of the market share in the entertainment industry, but to be considered a true monopoly, you have to own it all. Disney has gotten close, but usually when they make a big purchase, like the one for 20th Century Fox, they sell smaller assets to make room for it. Growing up, I love seeing a lot of these big companies act independently because competition is a great thing. DreamWorks all started from an ex-Disney employee, and we've gotten some amazing films because of that. I'm not saying that Disney is ruining everything it touches, but you can at least feel a little decrease in risk being taken just so they can appease the parent company's shareholders. While parent companies can be good and help ensure quality amongst a widespread of products, too much control can cause a sense of blandness, and nobody wants to spend top dollar on something that's boring.